People love to overcomplicate the process of investing their money, but the truth is that for the vast majority of you watching this video right now, you only need to follow 7 principles to stay on track and build long-lasting wealth. Some of these I've learned from practice, some through mistakes, and some are just common sense that most people just ignore or forget about. Lucky for you, most of these principles are actually super easy to understand and don't require much effort to implement in your life. And all of these habits are actually proven to work and are pretty much guaranteed to make you money, unlike shorting Nvidia. I would even go as far as saying that these strategies are completely timeless, to the point that you could come back to this video 10 years from now and it's going to remain just as relevant as it is today. I have a free gift for you at the end, so this is not a video you want to skip through. So sit down, get comfortable, and let's get started. Number 1, investing as soon as possible. From all the general financial advice you come across on the internet, this could easily be the most impactful in terms of how much wealth you're able to build throughout your lifetime. It should be common sense if you think about it. A money-making vehicle multiplied by time equals more money. So, the more time you give your investments to grow, the larger they will become by the time you retire. Since you can't go back in time, the best way to do this is to start investing money as soon as you start making money, even if it's just your $20 per week allowance. And if you think you're too young to start investing, you're mistaken.
I had started investing when I was 11. I just dithered away until when I was 7 and 8 and 9. So unfortunately, I didn't get started until I was 11. But I bought my first stock when I was 11, and then I experimented with a whole bunch of things, the timing of stocks and charting and doing all these crazy things.
I bet you're much older than Warren Buffett was when he made his first investment. Before he was even a teenager, Buffett had already started a number of different businesses, such as selling gum and newspapers door to door. And even though he made very little money from all this, he made his first investment at the ripe old age of 11 when he bought 3 shares of Citi Service. At an early age, he understood the power of compounding interest and how even his tiny investments can grow to a significant sum of money over time. The truth is that most people know that starting to invest early in life is a good idea, but they just procrastinate on getting started for various reasons. They might convince themselves that they don't earn enough to start investing, or worse, they adopt a YOLO mentality where they would rather blow all their extra cash on vacations and parties while they're young instead of saving for retirement. Now, to be completely honest, you technically can get away with not investing for a few months or a couple years because it probably won't make that much of a difference in the long term. But there is a caveat, because the type of person who keeps putting things off and postpones them is probably also the type of person who never actually gets around to doing something until it's too late. So don't be that person. Just consider this. If you invest $100 a month starting at the age of 20 at an average of an 8% return, by the time you're 65, that $100 a month will have turned into a nest egg of almost $540,000. But if instead you think, I have my entire life ahead of me, I just want to go to Coachella and camp out at their $20,000 per night tent, and you start investing that same $100 a month just 5 years later at the age of 25, by the time you're 65, that amount will have only turned into $361,000. That works out to be a difference of $177,000 just because you waited an extra 5 years to start investing. And what's even crazier is that during those first 5 years, you've only invested a total of $66,000. This is why the money you save and invest right now is pretty much going to be the most important money you will ever have in your entire life. Once you realize how much money you're leaving on the table by putting off investing, your entire mindset will change. For example, throughout my early 20s, I was always locked into investing mode because I realized the significance of compound interest. I knew that my early 20s were the best opportunity for me to start investing since I had a decent source of income from my job, and I still lived with my parents. This might sound extreme, but I saw every dollar I had at the age of 20 as being worth $21 by the age of 65. So if there was something I wanted to buy, I would multiply that price by 21 and ask myself, is this thing worth that much in future dollars? And most of the time, it wasn't worth it, so I would rather just invest the money instead. Number 2, not timing the market. Out of all the generic investing advice you've heard, this is probably the most mathematically proven one.
We have not been good at timing. We've we've been reasonably good at figuring out when we were getting enough for our money.
Because there is a ridiculous amount of data that proves exactly how stupid it is to time the market and how much money you will lose by falling into this trap. But this is also the most difficult to follow because people make most of their investing decisions emotionally, not logically. From my own experience, pretty much every investor out there thinks that they're smarter than everyone else and that this time is different. They'll read up on all the signs and charts that indicate future price action, and then they believe that they could outperform every other professional investor by timing their investment. But unless you get extremely lucky, or you work for Congress, you're probably not going to make a lot of money doing this. In fact, you're statistically almost guaranteed to lose money. Here are the facts to back this up. Since 2003, had you just bought and held, your annualized return would have been about 9.8%. But had you been trying to time the market and missed just the top 10 best trading days over that time frame, your annual return would drop all the way down to 5.6%. And all it takes is to miss the top 30 best trading days over 20 years, and all of a sudden, your return drops to just 0.8%, which is below the rate of inflation. There's also another study out there that shows that, generally speaking, the more trades you make and the more you try to time the market, the lower your overall return becomes. This is why it's proven that the average investor is absolutely horrible when it comes to investing, and they dramatically underperform the market. So in terms of what you could do about all of this, it's very simple. All the research out there has shown that since 1926, a 20-year holding period has never once produced a negative result. Or, basically, if you just keep your money invested and avoid jumping in and out of the market, you'll probably be just fine. You could literally go into a coma for a decade after setting up automatic investments into a general index fund, and you'd still make more money than the investor who keeps trying to time the market. Just buying into the market immediately, regardless of its trading price, has outperformed trying to time the market 71% of the time. That's why, in my opinion, your goal should be to invest as much money as possible and keep it there for as long as possible, instead of trying to find the lowest entry point or selling at the peak and then trying to buy in lower, because your chances of getting that right consistently are pretty much non-existent. Even if this works out for a few weeks or months, do you really want to gamble your future against the house? Because in the long term, the house always wins. Number 3, only invest in what you understand. Remember the crypto boom in 2018 and the NFT boom in 2021 and 2022? What do you think happened to all the overexcited investors who thought Dogecoin was going to the moon? I'll tell you, most of them lost everything. It's really easy to hop on the bandwagon and throw your money into an investment because all your friends are doing it too. That's how the average investor operates, and that's why they lose money. Do you know what Warren Buffett did? He held off because he had the humility to admit that he didn't really understand how crypto and NFTs work, so he'd rather not invest in them.
The most important thing over a long period and working with big money is to understand the business.
Now, of course, I'm not saying that you have to be a full-fledged expert on the US equities market before going and buying an index fund, but you should at least know exactly what you're buying into, how the investment makes you money, how long you have to realistically hold on to it to turn a profit, and how much volatility you could realistically expect to handle. If you buy a fund from a legitimate broker, you should be able to find all this data for free before you invest a single dollar. If you're not able to answer those specific questions and you can't justify why your money should be put into those investments, then my recommendation is that you should not invest until you learn more. Even if that means you miss out on some potential profits, in the long term, you'll end up saving a lot more money in opportunity costs than you will by following random things that you don't know much about. Number 4, don't invest for the short term. Anytime you invest, there's always a chance of it losing value in the short term. This is why investing should always be seen as a long-term strategy. That's why I like to keep my emergency fund in a high-interest savings account. It's there if I ever need it, and I don't have to worry about it losing value if the market isn't performing well. Unless you're involved in some pretty shady stuff, you can't predict what stocks are going to be trading at a week, a month, or a few years from now. But once you zoom out, you could see that over a period of 10 to 20 years, your chances of coming out ahead and making a profit are pretty good. Of course, This is assuming that you made smart investments in something you understand instead of throwing your life savings into NFTs. Let me give you an example to help you understand how badly you could get screwed by investing for the short term. Let's take a look at what happened back in March of 2020. There were so many investments that dropped 50% or more in a matter of a month. Had you invested all of your savings in January that you then needed to use in March or April, chances are you'd be screwed and be forced to sell at a loss. However, on the other hand, if you invested money that you knew you didn't need for the next 10 years, now those investments would be up almost 200% without you doing a single thing other than holding. So when it comes to this, here's what I personally do and recommend for most people. If I know I need the money in the next 1 to 3 years for something like a down payment or paying taxes or something else, I won't invest it. Instead, I'll just throw it into a high-interest savings account, money market fund, or treasury earning about 5%, and I'll keep it there. Sure, I could miss out on potential gains in the market, but it also guarantees that I'm not going to lose money and that I'm going to have everything available by the time I actually need it. Number 5, make it a habit. Just like most things in life, consistency is also the key to success for investors. Real investing is actually pretty boring because you're not really supposed to do much. My investing philosophy is, if it's too exciting, it's too risky. Instead of waiting to invest until you find the next GameStop, you should think of investing as brushing your teeth, something you just automatically do without even thinking about it. And the best part is that once you get in a routine of investing consistently, it just sticks after a while. This is the mentality that's going to allow you to turn small amounts of money, which might seem inconsequential today, into a fat chunk of change later in life. Even $100 a week goes a long way. But if you're having a hard time coming up with any money to invest, chances are you're overspending on things you don't need. So it's time to cut back on your spending. Let me give you an example. If you literally did nothing besides investing $100 a week, preferably in a Roth IRA so it's tax-free, at an average of an 8% return, you're going to have over $2.3 million saved in 45 years. Even if you don't have $100, let's just say you have $50 a week. In that case, you would still generate $1.2 million during that time frame. And the best part about this is that it's really as simple as automating investing as much as you can. For example, you could set up automatic withdrawals to buy an index fund for you on a regular basis. Once you set it up, you'll never have to think about it ever again. It's out of sight, out of mind. Number 6, think for yourself. When it comes to investing, get in the habit of thinking independently. Out of all the other principles, this is probably the hardest to do, but it's also going to be the one that could make you the most amount of money if you're good at it. And what I mean by this is that you have to trust your instincts and research and not be swayed by someone else who says otherwise or disagrees with you. Now, I'm not saying that you should automatically tune everybody out or not listen to anything you don't like, because that's stupid. But you should find a healthy balance between analyzing all the information that's out there and coming to your own conclusion. Honestly, doing this has helped me make some of my best investments ever, like buying an investment property when I was only 24. By thinking for yourself, not being swayed by others' opinions, and doing your own research, you'll do much better than people who just follow the herd. As the expression goes, if everyone's talking about the hot new investment, it's not a hot new investment anymore. Number 7, diversifying. This last principle is very close to my heart.
Diversification is a protection against ignorance. I mean, if you want to make sure that nothing bad happens to you relative to the market, you own everything. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that is a perfectly sound approach for somebody who does not feel they know how to analyze businesses.
Diversifying my income is the reason I was able to buy my first investment property when I was in my early 20s. I had a full-time job, and I was also running a small car rental business on Turo. This allowed me to qualify for a mortgage that I otherwise wouldn't have. Diversification is so important for investors because you never want to put yourself in a position where all your eggs are in one basket, because if that basket breaks, you'll lose everything. That's why I personally love investing my money in broad market index funds, such as the Vanguard S&P 500. It's stable, reliable, and automatically diversifies my investment across the top 500 US companies. So, even if some companies go down, the others will go up and kind of balance things out and give me a positive return in the long term. But most people only focus on diversification in their stock investments. What about diversifying your sources of income? According to research, the average American would go into debt after just 1 week of losing their job. So, if your entire livelihood depends on a 9-to-5 job, you're in a very risky situation. And AI is only making things worse for working-class Americans who lose their jobs every time ChatGPT gets an update. So you need to add an extra source of income to protect yourself and your family. I discovered a really unique way for everyday people to earn an honest income while keeping their 9-to-5 job. Most people don't even know about it, but it can easily make you an extra $2,000 to $3,000 per month if you're consistent. And since you made it to the end of the video, here's your gift. Click the link in the description for my free beginner's guide to tell you all about this side hustle so you can get started in less than 3 weeks.